Hi there, Mike Hendricks here from SMB Golf. And today my guest is Mike Zisman, founder and executive chairman at Golf Genius. And this is the Tech Caddy Podcast. Mr. Zisman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I have referred to you often when you're not in the room as the hardest working guy in golf. And the reason I've always said that about you is I saw you at more conferences than anybody else when you were getting Golf Genius
Yeah.
going. And it just stuck with me that
Yeah.
man, this guy is committed, and I never forgot it.
Yeah. I would say I'm pretty tenacious. I love what I do, though. I'm 77 years old and still doing it because, well, there's two things. One thing I love is mentoring young people. You mentioned Ben Wolf in your area, who's been with us forever, and, basically helping grow the game. I often say I'm a passionate golfer, not to be confused with a good golfer.
That's a lot of us.
Hope springs eternal, and I'm still working away at it.
Yes, of course. So, I also kind of know about you, not because of like a family thing, but a long time ago, I noticed that you had been at IBM. And my whole family is an IBM family. That's what I
Oh,
did for my college summer job. We're
yeah.
IBMers, my family.
Yeah.
And so I researched you years ago. I wanted to understand how you got to IBM and what happened, and we'll get into that because I think the story about the software company that you sold to Lotus is a really cool story. But I am also interested, when did you get drawn to golf? I mean, were you a 12-year-old playing golf, or did that happen later in your life? How did you get drawn into golf?
That's a good question. It came in two stages. So when I was a kid, I grew up in Pittsburgh, not far from Columbus, Midwestern city like Columbus, and I played golf as a as a young kid. And I always played at a public course, a South Park golf course, and it had a par three hole. It was 145 yards, and I always parred this hole, Mike. And one day, the ball went left. I chipped it up. It went right. It went left. It went right. I threw down my 5 iron, broke it in half, walked home 5 miles, swore I'd never play golf again. That was stage one. And I
Yeah.
didn't. And I didn't. And I live here on the main line of Philadelphia, surrounded by golf courses. And I would drive around and go like, what are these people doing? I mean, what what are they doing chasing this ball? And in my first company, the mentioned was sold to Lotus. At one point, my VP of sales said, "Mike, we got to go play golf. We got to go play golf." I went to Cobb's Creek Golf Course, which is now through a major renovation, and I fell in love with the game, and started playing again. And for my 40th birthday, went out to Phoenix and went to a golf school at I still remember McCormick Ranch, which still exists,
Of
and
course.
I just came to really love the game. It's a I give a good in this May, I'm taking my 2 sons to play Pebble Beach, right? It's a
Yeah.
great family game. I used to play with my boys when they were younger. My younger daughter's into golf. It's a great family game, and I love it.
Yeah. It is a great game. So it sounds like almost like a 25-year hiatus or so, something like that. Yeah.
Yes, it was literally, and I literally swore when I literally walked home 5 miles with my golf bag, threw it away, and said, I'll never do this again."
That's funny.
And, I would, as I said, walk and drive around thinking like, "What are these people doing?"
Well,
It's
Pittsburgh golf is special to me. When I was with Golf Now, Pittsburgh was one of many of these Rust Belt cities, really,
yeah,
that I oversaw. And boy, Pittsburgh was tough for us, Mike.
yeah, was it?
We struggled to really connect with the individual owners. I think we did get there, but Pittsburgh was as hard as it could
Yeah,
be for
yeah,
a market for us. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's a great city. I have very, very fond memories of growing up there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I tell everybody about SoftSwitch. SoftSwitch is I've
Yeah,
got that right, correct?
you d you've done your homework.
SoftSwitch is your first, and I think you're the founder
I
of
was.
SoftSwitch. Explain that a little bit because I think it helps to
Yeah,
people understand Golf Genius wasn't your first rodeo. I think it probably
right.
plays a role in why you were so successful with
Yeah,
Golf
yeah.
Genius.
Yeah, so my background, I'm a recovering academic, which will probably come out a bit. So through ended up, was a chemical engineer at Lehigh. In fact, I'm going to visit Lehigh tomorrow. Ended up in grad school at Penn, PhD, in decision science. My PhD thesis was literally an AI thesis back in 1977. Went to MIT for a couple of years, realized this is not for me. I don't want to be an academic. So I moved back here and started a company. And we zigged and zagged like many companies do, but SoftSwitch ended up being the major company to interconnect all the email systems that people had at the time. So, like many companies, we solved the problem that doesn't exist today. Like when you want to send me an email, you don't wonder what email system I'm on. You couldn't care less, right? We have protocols like, for email, like SMTP and POP3 and all that sort of stuff. And we ended up connecting all these mail systems. So a large corporation might have IBM mainframes you mentioned. They had DEC systems, Wang systems, HP systems. None of them talk to each other. We built the back end software to interconnect them all. So if you were on Wang and I was on IBM, and Mike, you sent me a message with an attachment, you thought I was on Wang, you looked in the Wang directory and saw me, and you didn't know that it was actually getting routed to an IBM mainframe. The document was getting translated into IBM format and stuff. And it was a very successful company. We were in probably 85 of the Fortune 100,
Did
400 of
let
the
let
Fortune.
let me interrupt. Did you raise money for that company?
We did. We did. I was actually at dinner with a friend last night because it's an interesting relates back to Golf Genius. So I started that company in 1979. I
Okay.
left MIT in 79, started it initially as a consulting firm in what then was called the Office of the Future, Office Automation. I had a client called Air Products and Chemicals here, observed that they had this problem. That, gee, the guys in the UK would write this big contract on Wang word processor, send it to Allentown. The guy, it's all bullshit. They rekey it on IBM word processor. They send it back to the UK, and here they go again. And I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that led to this editable document translation and stuff like that. And so in 1983, I said, there's a real business here. And I raised what I was convinced would be all the money I'd ever need. I raised $600,000 from a local firm that sort of did, local friends and family. And that
A
was in the way.
family
Your staff doesn't have time to log into 5 different systems, but they will send a text message. Text to web lets authorized staff send a text message, and that message instantly becomes an official update for golfers. It shows on your website as an alert, hits your social channels, feeds your app notifications, and is read by your AI agent. No logins, no dashboards, no repeated updates. Text to web costs less than $500 a year and was built by SMB Golf for golf and club operators like you.
Sort of, yes. They
so
raised money from different families, and
Yeah,
that was on the way to raising $20 million, which back then was a lot of money.
sure.
Today is nothing, but then a lot of money. And I was fortunate, Mike, because it was sort of the premier venture capital firms, the New Enterprise Associates, Yoke Investment Partners. And the company was success. It was hard. It was hard. I'll tell you, we were way ahead of the market. So it was gruesome for a while. Had to cut the company back 3 times, but eventually, um, it was quite successful. And as you said, we sold it to Lotus, and 11 months later, IBM acquired Lotus. But what's interesting is that firm that invested the $600,000 with me in 1983 invested in Golf Genius 37 years later.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that is beautiful.
It was a
Uh,
successor firm to it, but it's the same guys invested in. Well, I financed Golf Genius myself internally from 2009 to 2020. And in 2020, this local private equity firm and Roy McIlroy's venture firm invested in the company.
Gotcha. And so I'm just curious where the entrepreneurial spirit comes from. Like, was your dad his own boss, your mom her own boss? Like, where's that come from?
No, that's a very good question. Yeah, I never really thought about it. That's a really good. I mean, I was the kid who got up at 4:30 in the morning to deliver the morning newspaper, the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. I sold it. I sold flower seeds. I sold vegetable seeds. I sold magazine subscriptions. I mean,
I
I
love
came
it.
from a very lower middle class family. I mean, we
I
weren't
u
suffering by any stretch.
In Columbus, we had 2 papers. I'm sure Pittsburgh had, like, 6, but
It had two. It had the Press and the Post Gazette.
so we had the Dispatch and the Citizen Journal, and so I was in the paper route business. Like,
Yeah,
I really believed in that a lot. I made good money as a
yeah,
kid doing that. One of the papers was the morning paper, and one was the afternoon, so I could work for both of them, and that's
yeah.
what I loved about it.
Uh,
I
yeah,
could,
I worked
and
the
then in
morning.
between, I had to go to school. So
Yeah, I worked the morning paper, and if you need, as you said, you could do quite well. I mean,
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I had 100 papers, and at Christmas, you get a $2 tip. That's $200. That's a lot of money
That's right. I
for a,
totally yeah,
12-year-old kid. So
exactly.
anyhow, I was always working, and then I mean, it's interesting, in 1967, I was a sophomore at Lehigh, and at that time, you had to take a course in computer programming. And I remember it was a beautiful fall day. I remember the building I was in, and uh, we started talking about computer programming. And I had McCracken's Fortran book, and I raised my hand and I said, Where is this computer?" "It's in the basement." I never left the basement. Well, the only photo of me in the Lehigh yearbook, besides my mugshot, is me at a key punch. I felt
Nice,
it was
nice.
like I felt in love with programming that day, and I stayed in chemical engineering, because I started. I mean, but I was really already into programming. I knew immediately as soon as I left. My first job at DuPont was in data systems, and I said, I love software. My I love running a company. My happiest days are the days writing code. I I
Yeah,
I
it
love it.
sounds like it. That's what I
I
was just gonna
yeah,
ask you.
yeah,
So you probably at your core think of yourself as a coder.
absolutely,
Yeah,
loved it. But I still love looking at it. I wrote the original scheduling program that Golf Genius uses. It's a very important part of our product. It's a mathematical programming system. But, other than that, we have, 150 very capable people in Romania that do all the development. I really like to start a software company, and then started this consulting firm, which led to this problem of connecting these systems together. I was back into writing software, and I've
yeah.
always, sometimes, I'm funny. You go into a golf galaxy, right? And you go, good Lord, what is the cost of all this inventory? And what if it doesn't sell? In software, you don't have that problem.
Right.
There's no inventory,
That's
right?
right, that's
There is
right.
no in
So, okay, so for the people that don't know, so Lotus, and if I have this, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Lotus even was somewhat competitive ultimately to Excel, right? Wasn't there Lotus 123? And that was like the spreadsheet, preferred spreadsheet, if you will, of IBM. IBM buys Lotus, you become an IBMer through that. And I think you work your way up within IBM and end up serving in a pretty important
yeah.
role in terms of international business strategy, that type of thing.
So the history of spreadsheets is the spreadsheet was invented by two guys who were at Harvard Business School and were presented with the classic, here's this huge spreadsheet you got to, and this one guy, Bob Frankston, said, you gotta be kidding me. I'm not doing it. He went off for literally, I know it's true, went off for 2 weeks and came back with VisiCalc. VisiCalc was the first spreadsheet that ran on an Apple II. And when the PC came out, Mitch Kapoor said, well, we should just go build VisiCalc for the PC. And that became Lotus 123. Now, here's a good story for you expert entrepreneurs. Lotus's business plan was, in their first year of business with Lotus 123, their business plan was to do $2 million in revenue. They did 53 million,
Wow.
because Ben Rosen was a guy on Wall Street, looked at this and said, this will revolutionize Wall Street. And imagine Wall Street today without spreadsheets.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
that's what it was in the 70s. You
Yep.
had calculators and these big yellow sheets of paper. So anyhow, Lotus 123 emerged, and then Microsoft actually acquired a company called Multiplan, and they evolved that into Excel, and then it was the spreadsheet wars. When I first got to Lotus, we were at the end of losing the spreadsheet wars, because Lotus built a suite, Lotus Smart Suite.
Yeah.
Microsoft had the Microsoft Office suite, and really, kind of over time dominated that market and still do. I think Excel is probably the most widely used program in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either that or Word, one or the
Or
other.
Word. I was
Either
gonna
be
say or Word.
either
Yeah.
gonna be Excel
Yeah.
or Word. So, yeah, what's interesting is at the time I sold SoftSwitch to Lotus, so Lotus had a product called Lotus Notes, which became very, very popular, and customers would say, "Look, we're not gonna have another island of email. You need to tie all this stuff together," and we were the key to doing that. So they acquired us in June of '94, um, and then, literally in June of '95, IBM did a hostile tender offer for Lotus because they wanted Lotus Notes.
Yep.
As I say, there's not much unique in the world. As close as I get is in a period of 11 months, I went from a company of 400 people, my company, to 6,000 people at Lotus, to 250,000 at IBM. And I
Right.
became CEO of Lotus and was one of what's called the Worldwide Management Council under Gershon, was the top 50 executives at IBM. So it was, I learned a lot. People say, God, isn't it, and most entrepreneurs can't stay at an IBM, right? It's like, this is insane. This is crazy. I'm out of here. I was, as I say, as a recovering academic, really curious about, like, wow, if you could get 250,000 people marching
Mm,
in the same direction every day, you can really kick ass.
yeah, right.
What I learned was you cannot get 250,000 people in the same. It ain't even close.
Yes. Yeah.
By the time you got your message got to China, we'd already changed the message.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Just
But,
that.
I always go back to so the Watson family is who founded IBM. I always go back to the fact that, like, so you can't get them to march together, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they created 250,000 jobs just in a one-year snapshot, right? Like, it's an amazing thing to
So,
create that many jobs and have that much impact. I can tell you this, IBM got so big that my father would come home sometimes and tell me stories about we have to diversify our area in this city because we employ too many people in that city, and if God forbid something happened, it would destroy the city. And so IBM had put in plans to say we'll never employ more than X% of any one town because
yeah.
we wouldn't want to have a detrimental impact on the town.
So the way I think about it is when TJ Watson made the bet on System 360, it was the biggest bet ever made in business. Talk about bet the company. It was bet the company. We're going to go from this 1401 computer to this whole series of scalable systems, right? Different size processors, different memory, disk drives, printers. And because there was no one else to do it, they had to do it all themselves. They invented the disk drive, these huge, and it was the bet of the century. I sort of think about commercial data processing as starting in 1964 when IBM released System 360, right? And I wrote my first program in 1967. I didn't know I was near ground zero. All I knew was I loved simulating distillation columns and simulating heat exchangers. But here's what's interesting. I joke around because one of our new competitors characterized us as a legacy company, which is that's one of the spears you try. There's their legacy, and I say, well, I'm in pretty good company. IBM is a legacy company. Microsoft is a legacy company. Amazon is a legacy company. But if you look at IBM, the rise and decline and then rise is
Right.
literally most people never get over the decline.
That's
And
right.
if you think about and if you were to go look at IBM's stock price, and the same thing is true with Microsoft, look at IBM's stock price, it absolutely flatlined up as far as when we had sales and marketing people running IBM. Ginny Rometty, who I know really are great, literally flatlined, bring in a new CEO, and he has done an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had bought IBM stock 5 years ago, you would be smiling. The same thing happened to Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft got eclipsed by the web. The whole time Steve Ballmer was there. I like Windows. We're committed to Windows. I don't want to hear anything else. The stock was flat for like 12 years. New CEO comes in who says, that's the old world. The new future is cloud computing, Azure, and Microsoft has also been if you just bought IBM and Microsoft stock 5 years ago, who were old legacy companies, they were the definition of computing, say in the
For
90s.
sure. Yeah.
Now they're, back on top. It's fantastic to see. My takeaway is leadership matters.
Yes.
Leadership
Agreed.
matters.
Yep. Yep.
And I more and more conclude in a technology-driven company, you need a technologist.
Yes. And I would also say this, although I don't like to think of myself as a process guy, but I will say this, process matters as well. Like people learned things in the first 20 years of a company and they applied them. And then the guy that comes along 20 years after that, just beware. There's a reason maybe for some of these processes that are in place. So with that said, so let's go to Golf Genius. So you had this amazing exit, by the way. So congratulations on that. I think that, I mean, as I understand it, that exit's larger than what Golf Channel paid for golf now. Like that was a really good exit.
Which
When
actually, which actually,
when Lotus bought your company.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but we get to about 2009. I don't know this for fact, so you tell me. I'm going to assume that the earliest iteration of Golf Genius was to solve a personal problem. That you
Correct.
were probably involved with a couple of trips, and you just kind of thought, I think I could do this better.
That's exactly right. So
Okay.
I so I mean, just to connect all the dots, um, I sold SoftSwitch to Lotus in '94. In '95, IBM did a hostile tender offer for Lotus. I stayed at IBM because I said I was curious about like, wow, you could kick ass if you got 250,000 people having the same. And I love working with Gerstner, and he liked me because I'm a strategy guy. Um, and I ended up staying there in different capacities till 2:07. I finally said, "I'm done. I'm done." Uh, and I was always the guy organizing the annual buddy trip. Starting back in 1989 when I started playing golf again, um, I was always organizing the annual buddy trip. Now 12, 16 guys, we if you're on the East, you fly down to Kiowa, right? You fly down Thursday morning, you play 18 on Thursday, 36 Friday, 36 Saturday, 18 on Sunday, the plane come back. And, we go on a trip, and Mike Hendricks had come up to me and say, you had me play with Mike Zisman 3 times, and I can't stand Zisman. And I didn't play with John at all. And, I thought dinner Thursday night was at 8 o'clock. You guys all left at 7:30. Okay. Um, and my background actually, and what I really love is scheduling. So when I was my master's degree is in basically operations research scheduling programs. And I was all the guy figuring out, okay, who's going to play with whom? I'm sure you've done these little spreadsheet.
Of
Okay, in
course.
round one, Mike and that. Oh, that doesn't work. Start over. That doesn't work. And I was sitting here with my wife one night. We're going to see, and I finally said, "This is an integer programming problem. I know how to solve this problem." One thing led to another, but you're right. I was solving the buddy golf trip problem, which we still do a lot of, right? And built this scheduling system that is unique in the industry because it automatically attempt to get as much diversity as possible. So say 8 golfers go on a trip to play 7 rounds of golf. Well, in 7 rounds of golf, you'll be with 3 people 7 times is 21. There's 7 other golfers. You like to play with every golfer exactly 3 times. And by the way, you'd like to be partnered with each of those golfers once in a typical, best ball partners. Well, we do that like that.
Yeah.
Boom, right? It's we literally can generate, runs every day, literally generate and score 50 million schedules a second.
Yeah.
It was my uh, epitome of my programming career.
And so let me ask you, you say to your wife, it's an integer problem. Like you realize that. How quickly do you then realize it's a company or a
Uh,
company waiting to happen?
so that's a very good question. I mean, well, listen, I started it in 209, in January of 209. I mean, in fact, I'll tell you a funny story. I was, I I realized this is an integer programming. This is an optimization problem. I know how to solve this problem. And I started working with a professor at Wharton, who was a brand new professional as a graduate student. He's one of the gods of integer programming, a guy named Marshall Fisher. And one Saturday morning, I went over to his house, and we come up with this algorithm, right? A way to go do this. And he said, I'm really curious, Mike. Why don't you hire a programmer around here, and we'll see how it goes. So I came home, literally sitting where I am right now in the loft in my bedroom, and I Googled Java developer Philadelphia. I'm going to hire a Java developer. And up on the sidebar comes this thing called Rent-A-Coder, which still exists. It has a different name, where you could post a problem and people could bid on it. So I posted this problem and I said, look, you need to know something about probability and combinatorics and that. And all these people jump in and say they're all outsourced. I bid on that $50, right? $500. And they said, what? I said, well, I'd pay $500. 500. And this one guy comes along and says, well, this is a very interesting problem. I like these sorts of problems. I have some questions. Okay. So the next morning I got up. It's honest to God truth. I thought, this may have legs. And I wrote this, what I thought was this pristine 12-page spec. I sent it to this guy and I said, take a look at this. Get back to me in a couple of days. 56 minutes later, I have read your spec. I understand it completely. I'm concerned I may be missing something because you said it was a $500 problem. I would have done this for $100. And I can see you're new to Rent-A-Coder, so I will show you how to resubmit it so I can bid $100. Well, how do you say no? Right?
Right.
That guy and his wife now run the 130-person development organization in Romania.
Oh,
It was
good. I'm glad. That's
He wrote
great.
the first code. Then I said, Alex, I'm going to take over. I'm going to take over writing. I know exactly what I want. And they went off and did other things. But by 2010, I mean, we at the PGA show in 2010, we announced golftripgenius.com.
Yeah. And had you raised money going into that show, or that was self-funded at this point?
Self-funded by me,
Okay.
funded by me till 2020. But
Yeah.
here's the bad news. So we announced this product at golf at the PGA show in 2010. About a month later, I get a call from someone that says, "Hey, I heard about what you're doing, uh, and I think I could really use this." And by the way, our total charge was $249, not per golfer, but for the captain, the guy who was going to organize the trip to use the software as long as it took to organize, say like 6 months to get the trip ready, right? $249. We now only charge $149 for the same thing, but $249. Guy calls me up and says, yeah, I'm taking 20 golfers to Scotland and I think I could use your software. I said, great. And he said, well, what kind of discount do you offer? You're going to spend $100,000 taking 20 people to Scotland and you're worried about my $249. I turned around and said to my wife, this is not a good sign. So it turned out to be a very small market. We still do it, but it evolved from that to, but after the schedule, really, well, you need tournaments, you need accounting, you need, Mike paid for the rental car and Joe put that, you need that, you need photography, and it's still used quite widely, but it was a very small market. We evolved from that to leagues, like
Sure.
that public golf organizing leagues. So instead of 16 people playing 5 rounds, you have, 50 people playing over 20 rounds. Different same sort of problem. And by 2014, I felt we had enough capability that we could go compete in the club market where there were, four sort of desktop types. Event Man was the largest and most successful of them, was used in all the big clubs in the East Coast.
Who else? Event Man, was Blue Golf somebody you felt like you competed with?
Well, Blue Golf probably existed. They were just working in PGA sections, which is
Right. Yeah.
so we didn't see them. There was 3 other small companies, one in the US, 2 in we acquired all 4 of them
Yep.
just to get the customer, just to acquire the customers and give those guys an exit. And, we hired a VP of sales who's still with us, Nick Wolf, grew up in Ohio.
Of course.
Ohio runs our sales organization. And we were plodding along. We were able to land most of the clubs in Philadelphia through Nick's connections. People love the product, a lot of development.
Mike, what I remember about Golf Genius, especially that 2014 era, right? So
Mm.
I remember, and I'm interested to know how intentional this was. You were incredibly close to the PGA golf professional. And I'm not saying the PGA of America. I'm saying you were building relation anywhere you could find a PGA pro. It seemed like Golf Genius was his best friend. And I would love to understand how intentional that was, if it just seemed to make sense and you didn't really spend time on it. Like, I think that go-to-market strategies.
It was very intentional, but 100% of the credit goes to Nick Wolf. So we don't sell to the general manager in a club, Mike. We're not like a Club Essential or Jonas selling to the GM. We sell to the director of golf, the head golf professional. In Nick's view, Nick was a PGA professional. Nick was the head professional at Waynesboro Country Club, about 10 minutes from me here, and joined us at the beginning of 14. And his view was, look, as I like to say, there's 29,000 PGA professionals and they all know each other. Mike and I were at this club in 49 and then you
Yeah.
became an assistant for dot, dot, dot. They all know. I'm exaggerating a little bit. And so it was very intentional. In fact, we often say that we have 75 PGA professionals in the company.
I know. Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Maybe even 80 at this point. Not just, but you say US, Canada, UK, but all of our customer facing people, whether it's sales or account management or customer support, with one exception of a legacy guy, they're all PGA professionals. They know golf. They know how to set up tournaments. They know what I call the 90 minutes of chaos before a tournament starts.
Mm-hmm.
They know when Mike Hendricks walks in the pro shop and slams down the scorecard and says, this card is not dotted right.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'm a new kid and you're the president of the club and I'm now shaking in my boots, right? So it was very intentional. One of the things I often say to people, and I think you'd agree with this being in the business, I say, at SoftSwitch, we sold corporate America. So you saw the entire breadth of people, from really nice people to not so nice people. In the golf industry, it's almost all nice people. And I mean, that's very serious thing. PGA professionals chose that career because they had a passion for golf. One of the things people don't realize is when these PGA professionals go through PGM schools, they learn a lot about customer interaction. They learn how to deal, with a woman in the pro shop who doesn't like what you have. They're very, very good at customer interaction. I joke around with one of our best salespeople, a guy named Scott Johnson in Florida, and I say, Scott, just out of curiosity, if I held a gun to your head, could you say Mike instead of Mr. Zisman? Sir, I don't think I could.
Yeah. So 2014, 2015, you've kind of Nick's kind of cracked that nut a little bit. He understands what the secret sauce is going to be in the storytelling, et cetera, et cetera. But then we get to a stage where I start to watch you guys. You start making a lot of acquisitions, and you mentioned those early acquisitions. But I'm talking about now, like Operation 36, things that are like clearly going outside of just league and tournament and
Right.
travel management. You clearly made an intentional decision. We're going to diversify. We're going to get our brand into more
Yeah.
golf things.
And so our proposition to a golf professional today is to say, Mike, you spend your time doing three things. You run a golf shop, you run tournaments, you do teaching and coaching. We have software products that do all three of those things, and we bundle those together as a suite, a Lotus Smart Suite, Microsoft Office, and we track very carefully our ability to get these other products in use. So yeah, it was very intense. And again, it was because we had PGA professional go, Mike, this tournament stuff's nice. Running a pro shop, there's just a lot of white space in a pro shop. The club essentials of the world handle POS, but bear in mind, the pro shop's a second citizen to Club Essential or Jonas. They're
Sure.
focused on the F&B. They're focused on the F&B world. So the PO systems are optimized for F&B. Yeah, we need POS in the pro shop, but here you go. I don't
Right.
mean that disparaging, but we don't do POS. We fill in all the white space. Like,
Right. And I don't know if this is through acquisition or you created it, but I think one of your modules, I'm not sure if that's the right term, one of the items in the suite is just called Golf Shop, right? I mean, it is
it's golf
it's
shop.
a
Yeah, it is golf shop. And in fact, that's again, our golf professionals said, look, there's a real opportunity here because just take demo club tracking. Let's say a driver in a pro shop costs $600 retail. They paid 300 for it. You walk in, and this always amazed me. And you say, hey, I'd like to try that driver. Well, you would think the pro shop would say, Mr. Hendricks, that's great. Here it is. I'm going to charge it to your account. And when you return it, I'll credit you. Oh my God, we couldn't do that to Mr. Hendricks. We can't do that. So Mike takes the driver. He's not a bad person. He either usually he returns it. It goes in his garage, he forgets, or he brings it back to the pro shop. No one's there, and he leaves it on the counter. Where did this thing come from?
yeah.
Well, guess what? We put a bar tag on the driver, scan it in. We know who has it. If it shows back up in the pro shop, so you can. We charge like $2,500 for an annual subscription. You make that up just in demo clubs. But I'll tell you one of the things we did last year that I think is just amazing. Talk about a boring use of AI. So imagine in a typical pro shop, how many boxes come in a year? Boxes of
Mm.
soft goods, boxes of shoes. And in that box is, a bunch of shirts from Peter Millar and a sheet of paper. It says, here's what we ship to you, from to line item, line item, line item, line item. Normally, someone literally has to take that and go key it into their system. We use ChatGPT. You upload that PDF. We say to ChatGPT, here's the data structure I want. Go create it. Zep, we now have an XML file in the system it goes. People love it. I mean, it's pure labor savings. There's
Yes.
nothing worse than that assistant pro dredging through this stuff, keying this stuff in. Imagine how many hundreds of times that happens here in a pro shop. It's one of examples of AI, working really, really well. So yeah, we built Golf Shop, but then we acquired Operation 36. We built our first coaching product, but when we acquired Golf Shot, they own Coach Now, which was kind of the leading brand in video analysis. That and OnForm are the two big players. And OnForm is a very good product. When we did that, we said, okay, let's move our coaching stuff on top of their brand it all Coach Now, use their UI, UX. And so today we're the only people who can say, here's what I call a full stack solution: video analysis, telestration, collaboration, the ability to communicate with
Yep.
students, scheduling, and payments. And that product has been very, very successful. But again, it's saying, what does that golf professional do? And how can we best serve them?
Mike, you mentioned payments, and I think I've said on this podcast many times, I feel like a lot of the software in golf is really just almost a front, for a payments company. Is
Yeah.
payments that critical to Golf Genius as well? Is it?
I wish it were. I wish it were. Because when I'm a member at Marion Golf Club, when I go register for a golf tournament, let's say I'm on Golf Genius and I register playing the member guest, that goes into in our case, the Jonas system. And Jonas is on my member statement. So in
Yeah.
private clubs, We do none. We do if you're doing outings with us, we'll do that. All of the state and region, what are called AGAs, they run tons. I mean, and make like the Golf Association in Philadelphia runs 200 tournaments a year. You're
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
what are you talking? They got 12 people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we service those people. That's all payments, but we do, I don't know, $300 million in payments, which is a drop in the bucket.
Right.
Yeah, I have all the time venture capital, private equity. Oh, you're a payment company. I said, well, stop.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There are people, I'll take an example, Golf Status. Golf
Yep.
Status does specializes in charity events and is free as long as they're doing the payment processing, which is fine. They're basically saying, we're going to make our money on this spread. Let's say, their credit card fees, they're paying 2 point something percent. They're going to charge the golfer 4% or 4.5%. And there's a lot of companies that do that. I mean, but for better or worse, that's not, it's just because we sell to clubs and courses that tend to have, we're running through the system of record. It's not a big money maker for us.
Yeah. You mentioned the affiliates, and to me, this is the most interesting thing about Golf Genius, and the is ultimately the deal that you were able to strike with the USGA slash
Yeah.
GIN. I mean, one, I would just ask you up front: is that one of the most transformational things that happened for Golf Genius? Is it, or am I overestimating how important that was?
It transformed the company.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
It was the transformational event.
So listen, we have a lot of founders that watch this
Yeah.
and just a lot. I mean, can you walk us through that a little bit, how that came to
Yeah.
be?
So we were out, this is, I guess, 2014. We're out, selling our tournament management system, which back then was $2,500, which was, so think the USGA provided a tournament. You probably remember it, TPP. Right?
Yes. Yes.
TPP was an old desktop program that was free. Event Man came into the market with the audacious price of $400. They paid $400. We came in with an even more audacious price of $2,500. And I knew through this grapevine that the USGA had contracted with Deloitte to build the new tournament management system. I go, this isn't going to happen. This is not what, you want to go. I don't want to be critical. I love Deloitte. You want to go implement Workday. They have a playbook. You talked about process. They have a process. Go do it. For something as innovative as tournament management software, it's funny how I knew about it. And I kept working my way through and dealing with the IT people. And it was getting we're building our own system with Deloitte. It'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. And then I was at a dinner. I call it the serendipity of life. It was the
Mhm.
writer's dinner, the writer's dinner sponsored by the Met USGA section. And the guy who ran that section said to me, Mike, there is a window of opportunity. You need to contact this person. I wrote an email to that person, got an email that said, you will hear from Sarah Hirschland in the next 48 hours, who was the chief revenue officer. And she said, look, we know about Golf Genius. People love it. We can't pay $2,500 per club. I said, Sarah, I haven't asked you to pay anything, but let's talk about how we could work together. And we came together in 2016, whereby we licensed them to distribute a basic version of our product. We call it our club version to all clubs. So every club that does handicapping gets this product included in their handicapping subscription. The USGA paid us a fixed amount for that, but we then had the right to upgrade those people to our premium offering.
Sure.
And all that was USGA branded. They also said, interestingly enough, Sarah said to me, Mike, she said, like, we really shouldn't even be in the tournament management business. I mean, no other national association does that. It's sort of I said, well, Sarah, let's write the divorce agreement right now. So if in 5 years you don't want to, we will transition it to the Allied Golf Associations. But we'll take what you're paying us and we'll whack it up among them. We're not, here's our opportunity to charge 3. We're going to do the right thing here. And sure enough, after 5 years, they said, yeah, we don't want to do this anymore. We went to all the AGAs, and like 53 of the 57 AGAs use our software. Northern California is the only major exception, uses Blue Golf. A couple other associations do things, but we transitioned that to the AGAs. Well, what's interesting, and that was tournament management. And those AGAs, I mean, they're huge partners of ours. We work
Sure.
major sponsor of IAGA and stuff like that.
I was a speaker recently at Miami Valley Golf Association.
There you go.
Of course. In Ohio, for people that don't know, we're one of these oddball states. We have multiple associations in
We
Ohio.
have 4 golf associations.
Right.
There used to be 5. There you go.
Anyway, the point is, I'm sitting at this table and I'm watching the different presenters and whatnot. The only other person at the table with me is your Golf Genius guy, and
Yeah.
he
Then
gets up and gives his presentation, and then and so
we,
no question, you have a very close relationship with all those
people do
guys.
not appreciate how hard those people work. I mean, I know Gap Golf Association, they run 200 tournaments a year.
Yeah,
They have like 12 people. It's all volunteer, but these guys are, and it's for the good of the game. They run these play days where you can sign up to play at a country club and things like that. In any case, after the tournament management deal, they said, okay, we're going to take our resources. We're going to go write a new handicapping system using the new world handicap system spec. That didn't go well either. And came back to us and said, look, can you build this? But it has to be up in 2020. Well, they had already done a lot. They had done all the design. They had a New York firm that did all the design, which is, is the hard work. It's getting the design right. We had this, as I call, we had to put the meat in the sandwich. We had to write the code behind it. I don't mean to big infrastructure problems. And in January 6, 2020, we brought up the World Handicap. We were the first country in the world to bring up the World Handicap System. And we just renewed that. So we do all the handicapping in the US plus 20 other countries.
and is
Great relationship with the USGA.
yeah,
Fantastic
yeah.
relationship.
Is the deal such that someone else, another company, could participate in that in the United States, or is it an exclusive agreement in terms of the
Well,
world handicapping
in the
system?
World Handicapping System, the USGA is the exclusive licensee in the United States for handicapping.
Yep.
Right? They are the licensee from what's called the World Handicap System Board, and they have chosen us to be their IT arm to do all that. So yes, today it is exclusive, and the contract comes up every 5 years. We just renewed it uh, January of either 25 or 26, I forget which.
Very good. So one of the ways that this podcast this episode came together is we were having some back and forth about all of these upstarts, right? Clearly there is a newer generation of
Mhm.
players that honestly probably started playing the game and Golf Genius already existed,
Yeah,
right? They don't know a world without Golf Genius,
right.
right? And so it only stands to reason that some of those people are going to say, "Oh, I wonder if I could do it better."
Yeah,
That's kind of like what's great about entrepreneurism.
that's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly.
And so I'm curious to know and kind of hear from you directly. How do you think about that new class or generation of management platforms and that type of thing? How do you all look at that at Golf Genius?
Well, we look at it very seriously. I've often said I do some teaching, and I often say to people, Mike, you seem like a really confident guy. Huh? You're kind of really confident guy. Well, what's the difference? What happens after you're really, really, really confident? What comes after that? Arrogance.
Hmm.
I got this locked, right? And I said, arrogance is God's gift to entrepreneurs because people get arrogant, they get complacent. That's what makes room for the next guy. Otherwise, the player would just keep growing and growing and growing, right? But we've seen that never works, for a variety of economics reasons. So we pay very, very close attention to entrepreneurs, and there are, a whole set of them. I think what I would say is, again, being a recovering academic with 50 years in business, if you've ever read The Innovator's Dilemma, which is one of the great books I'd recommend anyone, it's like you don't go directly after the incumbent. You nibble away at the edges, right? I'll use Golf Status as an example. Golf Status, same owner who owns Dormy Club. They started out coming right at us, but quickly realized that didn't work. And they built a nice little niche doing charity tournaments, right? Squabit probably has more presence than all these other guys, and they've been around for quite a while. Totally free product. A guy in Toronto. I think what people don't understand is they talk about golf tournament software, and what I would say is you have to think about it this way: there's a golfer, right? A single golfer that gets serviced by the golf shots to swing you as the 18 birdies of the world. And they're starting to add what we call small games capability, including us, so that that individual golfer can do it. Then there's a segment of groups of golfers where we used to be in the early days. Then there's public courses, private clubs, regional associations, national associations. So, I mean, we do all the scoring for the USGA except the two big shot link tournaments, PGA of America, England Golf Wheel. I mean, we have a huge business at national association level. There are some small companies who are kind of opening up that niche of what I'll call groups of golfers, and then want to use that to step up into into servicing clubs. It's a big difference. I mean, the needs of a guy organizing his own little golf league are very dramatically different than a club, that's running a member guest, that's running a club championship and things like that. So I mean, I wish these guys well. I often say competition accelerates innovation and reduces cost. Which of those don't you like? Right. That is,
Yeah.
that's the essence of a capitalist economy. We can complain a lot about the things in the United States of America today. It is a capitalist economy where innovation is valued, entrepreneurship is valued. And so we welcome the competition. We have a whole competitive response team that's monitoring what people are doing.
Go through that process, Mike, of, this is something that we used to do at Golf Now. And look, your arrogance, comment resonates. I get it, right? We used to have offsites where we would try to disrupt ourselves. We would try to, in a 3-day period, you had to come up with an idea. We had to P&L it, the whole thing. Do you all go through a similar process?
Similar with IBM. We have what we're called red and blue teams. So I'm the blue team with an IBM product. You have to have the red team and and build a competitive product or compete with it. We spend a lot of time in competitive analysis, working with these products to the extent that we can, understanding what they do well, what they don't do well, explaining, positioning with competitive guys and things like that. We take it very seriously. And what I would say is, um, big companies get complacent. And if you're lucky, some competitors will come along and hit you by a 2x4 and you realize this is not a good time to be complacent. Or if you're not lucky, you continue staying complacent and I mean, IBM in its heyday thought it controlled the pace of innovation. DEC ate their lunch for a while and then the PC ate DEC's lunch. So I mean, I often say to our guys, look, one of the advantages I have over all of you is I'm a really old man. I've been in this industry for 50 years. I've seen the rise and fall of IBM, the rise and fall of DEC, the rise and fall of Compaq, of Tandem, all sorts of software companies that don't exist anymore. So I often just, one of the great books for me is Andy Grove's book, Only the Paranoid Survive.
Yeah,
Mm.
when I would interview people, I would talk about a healthy amount of paranoia
Well,
in a confident person,
it
right?
is.
And that's what I love, that balance of, is there healthy paranoia and yet is she confident? And I would look for those two things to
You're,
mesh.
you're absolutely right. And I say the one downside of being an entrepreneur is you wake up every day being paranoid.
Yes, that's right.
As opposed to my trainer, when Sabrina's done with her client, she goes home. She's not thinking about her client. I mean, she's thinking about her kids, right?
Yeah.
So one of the downsides, and I would say that, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're very confident about what we have and what we do. We work very closely with our customers. We have 300 people in the company, but we're very, very cognizant that it can take years to go up and minutes to go down,
Yeah,
and so we
sure.
pay a lot of attention. What I would say, and look, I mean, yeah, my advice to these guys is, you all think you're competing with me, you're competing with each other.
Yeah.
And by the way, some of the people you're
That's the
competing.
one, Mike. I'm not sure I'm gonna check off and say I agree, but
Okay,
I
well,
appreciate
they
you
wanna
saying it.
compete with me. They wanna compete with me. What I'd say is, you better be paying a lot of attention to the other companies in your space who are trying to do the same thing. So, a Par 4 comes along and says, "We're taking on Golf Genius." Live Tourney, we're the only alternative to Golf Genius. Unknown Golf. But the reality is they're all
Kid
other,
Are you familiar with
isn't it?
Kismet? Yeah, Kismet?
Absolutely.
You familiar?
Just got rebranded from
Right.
what it was
Got rebranded.
before.
How about Smart Golf out of
Smart
Canada?
Golf Canada, we know well. Smart Golf's doing a good job competing with us because they picked a niche.
Yes.
They do. We acquired a company in Canada that ran leagues in a very specific way. So we're going to tell you how to run leagues, guys. Listen to me. It's college golf. You have large teams. People show up. So Smart Golf is being effective in Canada. We're working on it. But some of these companies have been around a long time, and the problem is, a number of them offer their services for free, right? So Golf Status makes their money on payments. But if you look at Golf Status, I was on it the other day, and you look at here's the tournaments going, there's 25 of them in the next 6 months. We do
Yeah.
2,500 a day.
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh, I get it.
Be arrogant, but
Well, you should come to Ohio. So I look over the Ohio Golf Course Owners Association, kind of a passion project, right? I'm not the executive director. I'm not on the board. I'm just their guy, right? And I try to make them stronger and stronger every day. And Smart Golf is going to sponsor that conference. You
Yep.
should come to the conference and you guys should talk. That would be good.
I'll talk to Ben about doing that. Look, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I love seeing someone dig into an existing market and succeed. What I would say is don't bite off too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Figure out who what we call what's the term? Unique customer profile, ideal customer profile, ICP.
ICP.
Right.
Yep.
You can't have both that guy in Ohio organizing a league and the top country club in Ohio both in your ICP.
Understood.
Doesn't
Yeah.
work. It doesn't work.
So,
The needs are very different.
Mike, I think there's two obvious questions when it comes to Golf Genius in 2026, right?
Yeah.
One is a lot of people ask tee sheet point of sale. I think some people think it's inevitable. I think some people are crossing their fingers hoping you'll never do it. But I think it would be good for the audience to hear from you your perspective on tee sheet and point of sale.
Yeah. So never say never, but I'm much more, and it depends, much more in the school will never do it. And I'll tell you why. We partner. We really partner very closely with all these. I call them venue management systems. We partner with Club Essential, with Jonas, with North Star, with Club Profit and private clubs in Publix, which it's 4 Up. I still call it Chrono Golf. Everyone calls it Lightspeed. I still call it Chrono Golf. Whatever Golf Now is offering these days after the EasyLink acquisition, T Snap. We partner with these people. And honest to God, one year, and say 2024, beginning of the year, I had the CEO of Club Essential and the CEO of Jonas both visit me here one day after the other. And they
Mhm.
both said to me, Mike, what we love about partnering with Golf Genius is we don't compete with you at all. The Venn diagram is like this. Most of
Right.
the people we have to partner with, we compete with. And so for me to turn around and build a T sheet and compete with them, and it's also a very crowded market. Now, Whoosh, so you had the T sheet guys, and then you had 4Ts. Bob Parisi's company been
Yep.
around a long time serving the high end clubs. Whoosh is trying to come in and displace 4Ts. I can tell you exactly how many customers each of them has. I won't, because I guarantee you every Whoosh account is a Golf Genius account. We know how many integrations we have with Whoosh. We know how many integrations we have with 4Ts. It's not a big number.
Yeah. No, I
Those
know. I mean, I
people,
think I track that data as well.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Those people are using the T sheet provided by theirs. And the other thing is, that's interesting. I was just on a call with Course Rep. People are now building, the phone replacement, IVR
sure.
replacement, the book tee times, directly over the phone. You got people like Notify doing a great job. There's a good example of pick a niche,
Yeah.
right? Pick a niche of wait lists, and he'll expand out from there. So, I would go, look, that's a very crowded space, and we'd be competing with a lot of partners. Why would we do that?
So then the next obvious question is exit. And I know that can be crass. I
Mm,
don't mean for it to be crass,
mm,
but people found companies for one of two reasons: to create generational wealth for their family or to ultimately sell it. And so I'm curious as to what
yeah,
the perspective is.
yeah. So I was very lucky. I created generational wealth from a family before Golf Genius.
Yeah,
So I funded the company myself for 10 years. So I don't one of the nice things about, and this is very important to me, one of the nice things about having been financially kind of done before I started this is I don't need to own a large portion of this company. Most of this stock is owned by employees.
that's great.
That Ben Wolf you're talking about, that
Yeah.
Ben Wolf who joined us in 2012 and got stock options in 2012, he's going to do just fine.
Yeah.
I, I will measure the success of this company by how many, and he's a PGA professional, how many of those PGA professionals make more money than they ever dreamed of.
Yeah.
Now,
No,
I
that's
don't mean
great.
they can make tens and 20 millions. You don't need to. You need to make enough money to put a down payment on a house and put your kids through school.
Yep.
That's what you need.
Yep,
And maybe
that's
take a nice
exactly what I used to talk about at Golf Now. I would talk about, ultimately my org got fairly big and whatnot,
yeah,
and I would talk about how many babies do we have in the org, how many mortgages do we that's what I cared about, you know?
absolutely. So for me, I get my thrill out of, I mean, Ben Wolf, I said, him, but Ben has evolved so much. He's fantastic. He's running a product management group of say 6 or 7 people in TM. This is a guy who used to be an assistant PGA professional at some little club in Ohio. Now an IT guy, right? So, you know, uh, what I'm doing is is planning a transition where a year ago I made Chris Kallmeyer CEO. He had been co-CEO for some time. Chris is, by my standards, a kid. He's only 52, 25 years younger than me. The company, our investor, I mean, think about it. Our major investors are Royal McIlroy and Tiger Woods. Whatever exit we would have doesn't even qualify as round off air for those guys.
Right.
They don't care. Like, whatever, Mike, whatever's best for you. Like, we're going to do well, whatever's best for you. My friends at MVP Capital, same thing. They think so. So there's no pressure whatsoever to sell the company. And if we did, we'd have to find a home that our partners like the USGA are very comfortable with. We're not
Yes.
just going to go sell this to someone who, I don't know. Um, we, we're sort of, well, we are thinking right now of doing what's called a minority recap, which is to bring in some capital to provide liquidity for people who want it, including me. So I like to say, it's been 17 years when I've had a audacious salary of 0.00.
Yep.
Because when I was investing in the company, why take money out and pay income taxes, right? So I've never taken a dollar of salary. It's not that unusual for companies because I own enough stock at the end of the day to be worth something. So we really, we think there's an enormous amount of upside. Right now we are, if you think about our core business, we're now very active in off-course golf. People don't realize there's 3,500 private clubs in this country. Mike, there's 2,800 entertainment golf facilities. There are almost as many entertainment golf facilities as there are private clubs.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
that's a shocking statistic.
I was on a panel 2 weeks ago, whatever, with Trackman and Roberto from CapTech, and we use the SMB golf data to talk about all of the off-course facilities and whatnot. We actually, Mike, we have it right at about 4,000 now, where we can find a simulator or something like
Was
that.
it? 'Cause I heard that number the other day, and I said, "Nah, it can't be. More like 2,800." So you're validating it. So now there's even more than there are private clubs.
That's right. The other thing we did talk about, just for the record, is, and there are some that go out of business.
Yeah.
These things are not
It's
foolproof.
high
Right?
churn. It's high churn.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if you think about those facilities, well, take Top Golf, for example. 3 years ago, someone said entertainment golf, you'd say Top Golf. That didn't have a great outcome for Callaway.
No,
It did not have a good outcome. If you step back and say what happened is they never created stickiness. They didn't have a consistent customer, so your cost of customer acquisition is very high. My takeaway from that in entertainment golf facilities, the KPI that matters more than anything else is bay utilization. In season, out of season, day, night, weekday, weekend. What we bring is stickiness. We run leagues, run tournaments. They use our coaching products. So it's a market. If we're interested in TrackMan, as you know, is a whole new lease on life for them.
yes,
And
amen.
they're about, I'm guessing, 60% share in the US of entertainment golf facilities, even more in Europe. Golf Zone is extremely strong in Asia. We just announced a partnership with Golf Zone. We
I
work
saw that.
so that's a very attractive market for us. And interestingly enough, and we'll see how it goes. The other market that we're in right now is racket sports.
You are okay.
So out of 30,
Under the Golf Genius brand or a different brand?
we're trying to figure that out.
Got it. Yeah.
That's why we're sort of right now, the product is out there. So we built a tournament management product for tennis, pickleball, and paddle. So if you think about 3,500 private clubs in the US, about 3,000 of them are country clubs. They're not like Marion, it's golf, or Pine Valley. They're country clubs. They have swimming. It used to be tennis, but more and more it's a combination of tennis, pickleball, and paddle. So we built a tournament management system for those three sports, not course reservations, not tee sheet.
I was gonna say, you're getting close, Mike.
No, we don't do that. We don't do that. We integrate with the others, and we have it installed at a number of clubs. And but it does raise a whole issue of, okay, how do you position that? Like, now we're not just golf; we are serving country clubs. So we're thinking it through, and there's some other things we're working on. One of the benefits we have is, although companies, we're in year 18, out of 300 employees in the company, almost 140 of them are in development.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
huge. Now,
Yeah.
because it's in Romania, as a percent of revenue, it's a much more rational number. But we have, literally 120 people in Romania, 125 people, and it's a wholly owned subsidiary, right? run by the guy who
Sure.
picked up the phone in 209. Uh, and then we have another 15 or 20 people in Golf Shot and Swing U that's here in the US. Um, that gives us enormous flexibility, continual development. We demonstrated a really interesting AI product at the PGA show where, I call it the 90 minutes of chaos before a tournament starts. And Mike walks up, the assistant pro, and says, "Oh, by the way, I need to, Mike Zisman's not going to make it today." Okay. Well, yeah. He now talks into his phone, take Zisman off the tee sheet, replace him with a blind with a handicap of about 5.
Yep.
Or worse yet, Mike Hendricks walks up and says, "This card isn't dotted right. I should be an 8. Please show me the handicap analysis from Mike where we walk through. This is your index,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so we're able to invest in those sorts of things. We just had a call about it today. So one thing I would say to this upcoming group of competitors is you got to be realistic. Like when Par 4 announced, they said, "We've raised $1 million." I got 54 people in tournament management.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been doing it for 14 years. On the other hand, people find niches. I'm sure like sometimes I run into a business and you go, "God, I never thought that was a business." Someone really found that little unserved market and found a way to do it and scaled it up. And I admire that. I mean,
Yeah.
I love entrepreneurs.
Well, that's good. So I think we're at the end of our
Yeah.
time. I know you are headed off the country to, I don't even know what the name of the place is. You're going to a golf school, so I hope you enjoy.
And then
And I really do thank you for the time. I really always wanted to have you on. I didn't want to have you on as one of our first guests, but I appreciate you coming on. And really, you are truly one of the people in golf that I think a lot of people admire. So
um,
thanks a lot for your time, Mike.
that's-
And congrats on everything you've accomplished.
thank you. It's been a pleasure spending some time with you, Mike.
Okay, thanks.
Take care.